All right, 6:02 it is. Well, welcome, and I hope you're all doing well there. It's a shame that we have to meet like this, but it seems to be getting better. So it's with some excitement that we are here today. And as we were looking at returning to full in person on Monday for the majority of our students, we wanted to come out and kind of just tell you a little bit about what's going on. Some of the changes, which are can be kind of big as far as traffic in our lunches. But the majority of stuff remains the same. With us tonight, we have, and I'm just going to go in order from which I have them, Miss Casey, our famous nurse. Hello, Miss Casey. Mr. Barrett, our assistant principal, and Miss Murphy, our other assistant principal for special education, and everything else. So she's kind of earned that right. So thank you all for coming out. And welcome. It is so great to think that in 4 days, we'll be back to in-person learning for the majority of our students. As well as offering our full virtual learning for our students who are working really well in that, or that's a right fit for them at this time during this really challenging COVID time. So it's been a long road to get here. We ended last year about a year ago this in 17 days or so. So about 350 days ago. And it's been a lot of changes, a lot of supports, a lot of tough times for families, a lot of tough times for students and staff alike. So it's exciting to be in this positive air and getting back into the way school's supposed to be. Now, it's been a long way. So we finished last year, and I think we did really good, or our teachers did a really nice job with the situation we were Zooming, we were connecting with kids. It was by no means ideal. Much like so far this year, it has been no means ideal. Our goal the entire way was to make the best out of any situation. So that we finished off last year. We had an ending that had some highlights, but obviously you feel awful for the 8th graders. You felt awful for last year's seniors, but we spent all summer planning for this year. And this year really came down to understanding the variety from not being in school at all, like we were ending last year, to being in school full person, like we will be for the majority of our students on Monday. How exciting is that? To a hybrid model. And our goal for the middle school from our teachers and administrators starting off was to make sure that we could do all three interchangeably and we could change relatively quickly. And we created that foundation for that. The teachers created a foundation for that. The teachers created a schedule for that. So it's really exciting to think that we're going to be going back in on Monday with really minimal changes to what's been going on and to what we created at the beginning, but kids will be in the classroom. So we'll go over that. We'll have time to ask questions. I do realize this is a great time of excitement for students, parents who get to send their kids off on the bus or drop them off, and for staff. But I also realize it is a time of great anxiety for all three of those groups of people as well. So if you have any questions, pick up the phone, reach out, and that's really the easiest way. You can email us as well, but phones are generally more immediate and they're old school. I understand that, but I love to hear someone's concerns and ask those questions. And I think that's true about Mr. Reiber, Ms. Murphy, and Ms. Casey as well. So we understand that the happiness and the excitement, and we understand the anxiety, and our goal is to really alleviate some of that for you and understand that we've been planning this for a long time. We had the plans, the majority of the plans for this in September, and we tweak things based on what we see happening here and what the different changes. For instance, the buses being able to carry more kids is a game changer for us. So we have more people taking the bus. For those of you who have not, who do realize that did not realize bus is an option and want to, please, you need to reach out to me by email and we will look to set that up. The bus company's been doing amazing things. Right now there is a wait list, but that wait list only means you need time to plan. The bus company needs to know who you are and time to plan, and then we get those on, and that turnaround time's been really quick. Shout out to Engelbus for all that they're doing. One important thing is You can't send your kid on the bus and if you haven't let us know, because we have exact seating for safety protocols. So please don't send them to the bus and say, just get on, because it's just not going to work. It puts the bus drivers in an awful spot. And it does compromise our safety and security as far as we go. The right way to do that is contact us and let us organize that with the bus company, and we will figure out a route for your child. So thank you. Today, we're going to explain what it looks like for students in the classroom, in the hallways, in the lunchrooms, and probably our biggest obstacle is our traffic and our drop off and pickup. And those are really the biggest things. Obviously, safety and security are always at the health is always at the center of what we're doing. So obviously, the protocols are going to be big, and we'll get through that as we go through our presentation tonight. So health, safety, and security, and Nurse Casey's here with us, so please feel free. You can ask questions in the chat, but we'll be answering them at the end. Or if I leave anything out, Nurse Casey, please feel free. Testing capabilities and setup. Again, when we talk about, I don't live in Hanover, but I'm proud to be associated with it. What's going on in this town is amazing to keep people safe. Over this last week, there were 740 tests. This is according to last night, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. This was presented at the school committee last night. 747 tests last week, 9 positives in Hanover. We are trending in the right direction. Congrats to all of you. It doesn't mean that we do not need to still be careful and vigilant, but it's a wonderful sign. We dropped out of the red. And what's our number today, Mrs. Casey?
We are at a 3.21% positivity test rate.
So I believe under 3, and we are out of the yellow as well. We got out of the red last week, and I think
we got out of the red last week. We're yellow this week, and we're hoping to keep that trend going.
Perfect. So that's pretty great. The other piece that we have that many people are taking advantage of is our pool testing. The other day, we had 450 students and teachers who were tested, and we had 0 positives for the second week in a row. So it's a really exciting thing. And I know people are nervous about how that changes their plans, but the idea is keeping it a safer place for us. Ms. Casey, anything to add to that for pool testing, or did I hit
So
it?
pool testing can only be effective if the majority of people are participating. We've seen our numbers jump up, and we're very excited that we have over 300 families that have opted into pool testing so far, just at the middle school. What's going to keep this effective is just being able to keep an eye and identify students who are asymptomatic or in the early stages of disease. So if you sign up for pool testing, what you need to remember is that if there is a positive case in your pool, it does not mean that your family needs to quarantine immediately. It means that we need to perform further testing to identify that one positive case within that pool. Right now, the pools are generally between 5 to 10 people, and we tend to have more in the area of 5 than we do 10. We try to make the pools a little bit smaller, and so that way there's less impact if someone is positive. But again, we have had 0 positives so far since the onset of this program. So we're very proud to offer the pool testing, and we hope that you will consider joining for pool testing.
Excellent, thank you. And if there's anything we can do to support anybody, if anybody has any questions, please reach out. With all that, I think and I'll thank them again later, but our school nurses, our town nurses, and our fire department have been amazing. So thank you to all of you who are really on the front lines and keeping us all safe. Again, to be a member of the Hanover community, even if it's by employment, is a wonderful thing. So I hope everybody here appreciates of that. For us here in the building, and for our administrative and our teachers, I need you to know that we're going to continue to follow all necessary protocols. It's important to us. Does that mean a kid might not have his mask on? No, it means when he doesn't have his mask on, we're going to say, hey, you've got to put your mask on and understand it, so that they understand why that's important. And the kids do now. We have very few of those problems anymore. Enforcing social distancing and being careful about, 6 feet at lunch and one person in the bathroom, and making sure that kids are not standing around and near each other. Those are all important things that we're doing. And that's all us. But I need you to know that should someone, I know a lot of people have that question or the concern about, you know, if there's somebody who sits next to my kid now within 3 feet, and I will tell you that most of our rooms, and I get to when we get to it, are more than 3 feet, and some are as long as 6. So we're maximum sized, maximum distancing here. What does that mean? And what I will tell you is we will assess each individual case. We will talk with the teachers, we will talk with the nurses, and we'll determine, you know, who are close contacts, who needs to quarantine. My hope is that doesn't happen a lot. The numbers right now are not trending that way, but that all can change. And what I'm telling you and promising you is that we monitor that hourly, daily, nightly. We wake up every morning and look what the testing the previous days have shown and make decisions around that. And that will continue. And so far, I think it's worked out really well, and it's been amazing. Obviously, you're concerned about adding more people and the closer they are. But the other thing that comes to mind with that, I've watched a lot of sports, youth sports over the last couple of weeks, and kids are close, and whether they're on the bench or on, playing defense, or, kids have been close, and the spread has not been there. Kids have had it who've played basketball and soccer and hockey, but it's not spreading to the kid they were next to the bench on, at least not on a regular basis, and not that we're seeing here at Hanover. And we're not seeing that in the classroom either. So we've been pretty lucky. So my thought process is that masks work, and that we're washing hands, and that we're using sanitizer. So I need to give a very special, so supervision is safety, and I need you to think about that. That's how we look at it. And I don't think Mr. Barrett prides himself on that very thing, and has conversations. We have conversations with kids every day about that. So supervision is safety, and I hope that resonates with you at home and understands that that's our priority. It doesn't mean that people don't make mistakes. I walked out of my office today quickly without my mask on, and I ran back in. So I guess I should have punished myself. But those things happen, and we're going to work to make sure that we stay on it, just like we've been doing all this time. So we've been successfully in school for 6 months now. So it's a pretty good thing. I need to thank our school nurses. Miss Casey, Miss Goldslaw, and Miss Joyce have been amazing at dealing with kids who are anxious, kids who might be sick, kids who we think might be COVID sick, teachers who might be nervous, anxious, and sick. It's really their phone lines are busy all hours of the day, and weekends and nights. So I just need to say thank you. What you're doing is amazing stuff, and we appreciate it. You're keeping us all safer. So in the classroom, as I mentioned, we're going for maximum distancing. Between seats is a minimum of 3 feet. And most rooms are bigger. On here, you see one that's just over 3 feet, and the top one on the right, top picture on the right, and that's a 5th grade classroom with 23 students. And those are just a little bit over 3 feet in those seatings, and there are some seats that are farther away. The bottom left is a 6th grade science room, and that's got plenty of room. Those desks are at 6 feet, and it is totally done to the fact that, for those of you who are not aware, for contact tracing purposes at the beginning of this term, again, we planned for all 3 phases so that there wouldn't be changes for kids as much. We planned for each kid to have their own desk, and kids to stay in their rooms, and the teachers move. And we'll talk about the plans moving forward, provided everything goes really well on the way back, on the return. But again, we're looking for maximum seating. So there's an idea of what that looks like. Masks are mandatory. That hasn't changed. I don't believe that will change in this school year. And of course, we will still need to have mask breaks, and our teachers, the routines are already in place for that within our classroom each day. Students will remain in the same room at this point in time. I'll get into that a little bit later. So again, our teachers move, and that is great for contact tracing and making sure we know who's where. It's not wonderful right now for 7th and 8th graders who are big and sitting in the same classroom all day. That's not the end goal. But again, we're looking at keeping things safe. That's our priority. And as we prove that that's the case, we look at expanding out and changing what we do. And students will remain in the same homeroom. So rooms are still sanitized nightly, and that's so important. our custodial staff does a wonderful, wonderful job at this. And it's a priority from the top down for our district management. So that is what our classrooms look like. The only other thing is we will still be asking students to bring their computers to class. It's almost been a way of life for them. Not that the idea is that they're going to be on the computers all the time, because believe me, that's not what our goal is. But there will be times that we need to use that. Mr. Barrett and I had an argument about that earlier. It is, we're not going to not use the tools that we have now, because they're important and they're actually useful. And we're going to have to train our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders differently, because they have a whole different skill set. And so, you know what? So do our teachers. Our teachers have gone above and beyond for that. So for those questions, please let us know if you have any. In the hallways, hallway protocol remains the same. You can see from this picture here that it is still, we travel on the right. It's socially distanced. There's 3 feet across if you're traveling on the right, if you see those blocks. So not really an issue. Plus, we're not going to stop and hang out. We're still not using lockers, although that's socially one of the favorite things for our students at the middle school to do. I understand that. It's not people hanging out is not what we're going to be doing at this point in time. So I apologize. Kids will be having their backpacks on them, and that's the way that goes. Students will travel socially distanced. Students will travel on the right side. Bathrooms. Now, this is a big one, and we've had a lot of discussion about this. Bathrooms remain 1 person per bathroom, and outside is socially distanced in line in the hallway. So for parents out there, I don't know if you've been in a middle school before, but if there's only 1 person in the bathroom, it's a lot better place at a middle school. And we can control more. I mean, we do have cameras that were put in a year and a half ago, and we do have people walking around the halls. We do not have people hanging out in the bathrooms to ensure this. So that's the way that this is going to go. And this is nothing different for our kids, right? There might be a line of 3 instead of 1 or 2 going to the bathroom. That's okay. We're going to deal something. We will continuously reassess all of our rules and protocols as we go forward. And now Mr. Barrett has done a ton of planning on our lunches and our transportation, and we've spent hours and hours going over this stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Barrett for the next couple slides.
Thank you, Mr. Birolini, and thank you for joining us, everyone in HMS World. First, I just want to start off by saying I am super excited to have these halls packed, lunches packed, classrooms packed. I am super excited. I know some people may feel a little anxiety with different ways, but I am super excited and cannot wait to see our students back in school. So I'll start off kind of just in a nutshell. My priority with making the school safe is safety and well-being, making sure that our policies and procedures are put in place for the overall safety to follow those procedures, as well as the well-being of your students. It's super important that those both speak to each other. And it's something that is very, very near and dear to my heart when I'm creating a plan for, say, a lunchroom or dismissal or pickup or all those wonderful things that we want to talk about. So that really is the biggest thing. For lunch particularly, you can kind of read the slides, but safety was a big piece. A lot of things that are changing and a lot of things are staying the same. Our lunch protocols are the same, which are 6 feet of distance between the students. I can assure you that every one of these seats that you see here, this is actually what our gym looks like right now, are 6 feet apart, measured to the T. We are following these. We've measured twice. We measure every night, like to make sure that these are working. Our bleachers are also going to have students on them. Pan Manning is our resident. She does everything, makes stickers, all these signs, wonderful things. There's about 86 students that can fit on those bleachers safely and within 6 feet of space. That's been consultation with the nurses, with Chief Jason Cavallaro for the fire department, as well as just overall making sure people are safe when they come into lunch. Now, we chose to do the lunch in the gymnasium for a number of reasons. Obviously, we're accepting more students into the school, which therefore we are excited for. But when the policies and procedures are not changing, we need a bigger square footage to accept more students. We wanted to have one place for these students to be in for a number of logistic reasons. One, we still have use of space in our cafeteria now, for bigger spaces. If one person or a classroom or a specialist wants to do a breakout classroom, big spaces are very important in planning. When you are planning around the school, having big spaces is a very, very, very big deal. And if you can preserve those, it's ultimately going to make sure that your efficiency and your options are greater. So having these students in here, max capacity in here will be about 206 students, which is more than safe and more than enough. Our cafeteria workers have done an amazing job. Just this past vacation, I was in there with Ann Judge, and 3 or 4 days of the week, and she's planning and putting cones down and making sure things are safe. All of their heating utensils, all of their 220 outlets that have changed to 110. Like it's amazing the amount of planning that we did together to make sure that this worked out nicely. But your students, when they walk into the gym, it's kind of a strange scene, but I think we now know it as the cafegimatorium. And that's at least what I say. And the kids get it. I mean, this is what's really great about this whole thing. There's a lot of things that have been kind of crummy about a pandemic, but resiliency and flexibility have your kids shown. And it's been really impressive. They walk in, we follow the directions, they sit down, they listen to me on the microphone. God knows I like to talk, so that's great. But it's ultimately keeping the kids safe. Another thing with lunch that is super important as the kids get to eat with their friends. In September, we had to mandate kind of seating issues and all this type of stuff. And I hated it because it was 25 minutes of you just had to sit where you sit. And it was a very somber place. When I say safety and well-being have to go hand in hand, that well-being piece of 20 minutes sitting with your friends is crucial. And I think it's awesome when I walk in that I can hear the sounds of a lunchroom again. So some of those normal things that we have missed so badly and maybe pulled our hair out pre-COVID have really been a nice thing to get back to. And that's a priority of mine, as well as Dan's and Stephanie's and obviously Joelle's, to make sure that your kids have 20 minutes to just let their hair down and just talk and be kids again. And that's something that I want you to know is super important for us. Also eating. We want them to have enough time to eat. That's great. Lunch is a time to eat. And then another priority is obviously listening to music or me singing or doing something crazy to make the time go past. But sanitizer dispensers for safety are multiple places. Masks can be off when seated, obviously, and masks are on when students are moving. We have an exit to our recess right out from the gymnasium, so it's a very easy kind of way of transitioning into recess for grades 5 and 6. And grades 7 and 8 have really stepped up this year and made sure that things are safe in the hallways. The greatest thing about lunch is there's a lot of things that have changed in our school, but lunch, the biggest change, is really the location, and our kids have stepped up in a big way. This week, we spent the time with half the number of students because we're still in that cohort model, working on this. So each student by Friday who have been here for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday have heard me say the policies and the protocols, as well as going over the safety. So that's that kind of practice, if you will, or pilot time is super important for the kiddos to know what's going on. And I can assure you, we're greeting them with like smiles on our face and encouraging them to shoot emails to me if they don't sit with someone they like, because that's, God knows, that's the biggest thing. I got left out in my group. Mr. Barrett can save the day with an email. So I'm always getting emails from students. So lunch is a big thing for us, everyone. For your kids to just be kids again and to enjoy a chicken sandwich or a slice of pizza with their friends. It's really great. And I can assure you that I test every lunch. That is 4 lunches just to make sure that the food quality is great here. So I always get a hard time with that. Mr. Birolini, next on the list, pal.
Yeah, before I go, I just want to give a shout out to our engineer who helped us make sure that we were appropriately seating in the up in the bleachers. So Mr. Lou Minikino, thank you so much for your help on that. Again, we the fire department out, we've had talked to engineers, and we just want to make sure that we're doing everything right and safe because we believe in a ton of planning for Mr. Barrett. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birolini. All right.
Now the easy part.
So now everyone's favorite time of the day, drop off and pickup time. It's super important that you know that we take this seriously. This isn't a joke to us. This isn't some image that's super confusing. This isn't something that we want for you to walk away. This has been the bulk of our time to ensure safety of your students. That's really it. This is very serious to us, a very, very big deal. Going back to go forward, our priority is safe, well-being as well, always. Collaboration with the police department, Sergeant Kane, Officer John Vocal, obviously Chief Sweeney, all of them have had their eyes on this plan. Obviously Dan, myself, Stephanie, to be able to kind of maneuver around our support and our supervision with this plan, as well as just to really iron out so many plans that could potentially happen. So a couple of priorities that we're looking, obviously, is safety. The next priority of this plan, and just to give you a little background of how we plan this, is we're going to be accepting more cars into HMS because of us coming back 4 days, which is awesome, which is great. One of the natural consequences, which is not a big deal, but it's something that we need to overcome, is the amount of cars that we're going to have to come into HMS. Buses, the regulation on buses definitely helped us, where we are now allowed to have more students on buses. That's great. And maybe some people have chosen buses to kind of have it as a placeholder and see how this all goes down. What we're trying to do is plan for the greatest number of cars at any given time, given what we have for information. The next kind of priority is getting cars off Whiting Street. This is something that has been really heavily emphasized by the Hanover Police Department. That has to be something we do. Blocking traffic on Whiting Street has to be prevented as much as possible. I think Sergeant Kane, who's in charge of the traffic control basically for the town, was saying basically that it's okay to have slow moving traffic, and in most cases, slow moving traffic with pickup lines is greater because it means safety. What's not okay is the overall parking lot on Whiting Street that everyone so much loves. And I really genuinely appreciate how much you smile at me, even though you probably don't when I wave to you. I'm really doing that just so you know that I know how much you love this. So with cars coming off Whiting Street, one of the solutions is, you can see on this diagram, the red kind of route, if you will. That's going to be where the 5th and 7th grade pickup goes. And the route basically goes off Whiting Street, comes into our HMS, and takes a right at the first turn into our parking lot. We're going to have everything mapped out with cones. We'll have tons of supervision, and we're going to be starting this obviously tomorrow. Tomorrow, Mr. B?
We can start tomorrow. Yeah.
Start tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll do that. We'll be out there. And tomorrow is going to be a test run for us. Really, that's what it is. It's not going to be a heavily crazy situation for you or increase your time necessarily, but to plan what we need to do with less cars, it helps us to have 1 day. So the red line around the building allows for us, for 5th and 7th grade pickup students, to go around, take a right at the first turn like you typically do if you come up a little bit later to pick up, go around our building. Now, from where that first turn is to all the way around the building to the 6th grade building, approximately almost down to the foot, 150 cars can fit there. With the idea that safety is important, as well as cars off Whiting Street, that 150 cars really does a huge benefit to us. So in terms of safety and our priority, that's our lens that we've looked at this plan with. Whether we know that this is the best plan, we do, I can assure you, there's plan B's, C's, and D's, and F's, and different kind of undulations, if you will, of the plan. But this is really with the lens of safety and cars off Whiting Street. So you'll go around, and as you can see the little stars where it says 5th and 7th grade pickup, that's on the blacktop. If you've never been in the back of the building, you'll see it clearly marked. I ran a paint stripper down the line so the kids will be safe. We'll have cones back there. You'll know where the pickup line is. And then you're going to exit around the building. I've done it with my truck and my trailer on it, so it's big enough to do it. It's nice and nice, not nice and wide, but it's definitely safe for you to do it. I just encourage you to go as slow as you possibly can and ensure that your safety and your kiddos' safety is paramount. So you'll come back around and you'll exit out Whiting Street, and then Officer John or a detailed officer will be there to exit you both left and right, okay? The buses, I'll go backwards a little bit to go with buses. Buses are gonna leave HMS at 2:15 promptly. Steve Engel has done an amazing job with his communication and organization of his buses. What he has done this year has been absolutely impressive to the overall efficiency of HMS or HMS and HPS buses in general. He's just been very flexible and very communicative to us, which I appreciate very much. We're going to dismiss our students at 2:10 p.m. from their rooms. And what that does for us is about 2 minutes prior to that original bell, 3 minutes prior to that original bell, it's going to let the bus students fill the buses. The buses are going to then be packed and go within that 2:10 to 2:15. That's 5 minutes. It approximately takes between 4 and 5 minutes each day for your students to jump on the buses and the buses to exit out. Then at 2:15, you'll be allowed to come in, and that's where we're going to have our red line going around 5 and 7, and then 6 and 8. All right, 6 and 8. You're going to go down, instead of taking your right, obviously, where those 5 and 7, you're going to go down the center aisle and filter off. I'll be there, or Mr. Birolini will be there to say 5 and 6, or I'm sorry, yeah, 5 and 7 in the back, 6 and 8 around the front of the building by the 6th grade wing by the main lobby. Both of those alleyways obviously will have another intersection over by the 6th grade. I'm pointing, you can't see it, but by the 6th grade clothing drop-off pickup. It's in the front of the building all the way when you're looking at the building to the left. That'll be an intersection, but that will be manned by myself or Mr. Birolini or Miss Murphy or a teacher that has been trained to fix that for you. Another piece for you to think about, and this will be put up on our website to make sure that you guys can read this again, and there'll be lots of communication. We're meeting students with about this. So I don't expect all this information to be fixed or perfect the first day or 2 days, but older siblings will be picked up at the younger siblings location. So if there's an 8th grader and a 6th grader, the 8th grader will go with this, I'm sorry, bad example. 8th grader, 5th grader, the 8th grader will go in the 5th grade pickup line. That's really just for overall logistics for you as parents to know where your siblings will be, and you don't have to wait in 2 lines. So this for us is a super important part. Going back again, safety, overall, getting the cars off Whiting Street, ease of bus access and departure. That's getting that bus out and making sure that's safe. And then let's talk a little bit about, I'll kind of reiterate that 2:15. I know it's super annoying when Officer John tells you to kind of keep going and you've been out there at 2:13 and it's 2:15. The moral of the story is it needs to be 2:15 for safety. It's not ideal. It's not perfect, and it may change. I just ask you to bear with us as we kind of work through a couple of these variations of the plan to allow for some flexibility to our plan. In the pandemic world, nothing is concrete. It's very flexible. And I can assure you that any decision that's changed on traffic patterns is going to involve myself and Dan and Stephanie and the Hanover Police Departments, Hanover Fire Department, all of these things, we've got such a good relationship that I can assure you that those conversations are going to be clear. And hopefully, flexibility kind of reigns supreme. And then what our job is then is to communicate to you those changes. So don't show up to HMS if you're picking up your kiddos until 2:15. Before I jump off to drop off in the morning, the other thing that we've got to really kind of work on is students who are being early dismissed. This is a tricky one. Where buses are currently going, or a pickup early dismissal is an easier thing currently instead of with this plan. Those stars that you see are kind of be where those buses are. The buses are pulling up a little bit. So what this means for you, really, please, please, please try to early dismiss your kiddos prior to 2 o'clock. You pick up your kiddos and you leave HMS prior to 2 o'clock. I don't want you to get angry and frustrated with us to make sure that you're stuck, but I also don't want to back up 14 buses because of one car's parked up. So that's just something I need your help with. And that's going to be something that logistically just needs to happen. And if you pull up and it's right before it, I'm going to be there with a smile on my face and we're going to work it out and be reasonable, but just something that you want to know for your planning purposes.
Yeah, with that, it helps if you are running a little bit late on that to make a phone call and we can have your kids ready and in a different place, if that makes any sense. Not that we want to do that every day, but if it's an emergency and you need to be somewhere like a doctor's appointment, then that's the case. But rule of thumb is we'd rather not have anybody be dismissed at between 2 and 2:15.
Yep.
And just to quickly piggyback on all of that too, I just want to clarify that even though there are 2 lines, I want to make sure that people understand that there is only one entrance in and one exit out. So I know that there are 2 lines there, but you're coming in, you'll be directed for those people that are going to be going around to the back of the building. You'll be directed through the kind of the staff parking lot to head around through the back of the building and then back out that same way. There'll be somebody on that corner. So it's another thing I just want to make sure people are aware of. There's only one entrance and one exit.
Absolutely. And that's just because of the lanes are only 2 lanes. So looking at, I feel like that's a dismissal piece there. Looking at drop-off procedures and routines are actually not changing. May they? They might change. However, I'm going to give you a hint. If everyone drops at 7:30, it's going to be a nightmare. 7:15 drop-off. If you were like 7:14 and a half, we'd love you too. 7:10 is too early, but 7:14 and a half is like gonna really give you the leg up in the morning. 7:30, it's going to be a cluster. It's going to be a huge bottleneck, and we're expecting that. But really, your pickup and drop off time, why we're not going to change the procedure there is because your window is larger and it's no buses, and you're able to kind of just go and drop. The same way that students enter now to the building, there are going to be multiple entrances. We're not changing that. But if you start dropping off at 7:14 and a half, and anywhere between 7:14 and a half and 7:35, you're good. You're really good. If you're expecting to slide in at 7:30 and to not hit traffic, you're not good. You're definitely going to hit traffic. And we'll be out there doing the traffic, and we're going to make it sure it's safe. And our main priority at that point, I hate to say it, is not you sitting in line. I also don't want your kids to be unsafe getting out of the line. The other piece is, if you do see a line of traffic, what we have told the teachers, and the teachers have been phenomenal, is push your cars up as far as you can, even if you have your kid kind of running alongside, like, I'm right here, but I've got to go 50 feet down the road. Please don't pass the cars in front of you. It is kind of a nightmare, and it's something that, again, I'd rather wait the extra 30 seconds than, God forbid, something happen. I don't even want to talk about it. So please don't pass the cars. Don't assume that they're kind of in or they're stopped. What we'll do in terms of being that supervision, and some might slide by us, the teachers have told to really kind of address the cars to move forward and communicate with the overall plan of, you need to move in and you need to move out. So please kind of wait your turn a little bit. Don't pass into a second lane. We're really trying to create one lane access and one lane exit. So that to me is dismissal and priorities. I am not expecting perfection, but I am expecting and 100% will have safety. Timing and all of those things, and the efficiency of plan, or if this is the correct plan, all of those things need to be weeded out. However, I will assure you that the safety of plan is going to be great. I have a surprise for everyone who is going to be picking up and dropping off on Monday. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but I hope you like it as you're sitting in line. I think it's great. I'm just going to say, no, I'm not going to say anything. Just make sure, if you want to drop off and see something fun, don't have your husband, don't have your wife, don't have your grandparents. You do it, because it's going to be great. And music, of course. So in closing, it means a great deal to me to do this safe. And it's super important that these things are done right. I am so excited to have your kiddos back, and I can speak with every one of my teammates here to the right when I'm looking at. It is so great to have your kiddos back, and I love it. These things need to be right, and I assure you that we will take the extra effort to make them right if they aren't. So please, thank you for your flexibility. Thank you for letting us trust with your kids, and we look forward to seeing your kiddos a lot on March 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. I think the flexibility is a huge piece. I think understanding is a huge patience. For those of you who had fifth graders who, over the last 3 years, or fifth or sixth graders who you've had to pick up at after a jumpy house social out back, where every fifth grader has an adult who's going to pick them up, or every sixth grader, so there's multiple cars. It's patience is the key there. So please, it's not an awesome system, but the parking lot thing has to be, as Mr. Barrett said, has to be something that we stay away from. Passing is a little bit dangerous, as he talked about. And actually, if you're dropping off out back, there is no way to pass because there's only enough rooms for the one car, and it's a little bit tight back there. So when you're making that corner, Just be aware of that. But we're really working. When you're at the 5th grade socials, I used to say, we're going to be here till 2:35 anyway, or 3:35 or 3:45, whatever that time is. So if you don't want to come into that time, we're not leaving until your kids do. So, that we're anticipating that. Currently, our traffic ends at around between 2:29 and 2:31. And it's going to be a few more minutes than that as far as it goes before our last car's out with the additional cars and kids coming in. So thank you, Mr. Barrett. Fantastic. And thank you for all your hard work with that. All right. So our plan moving forward, just so people at home know, we're meeting with the student bodies, each grade level this week, next week, Monday at 8. Again, procedures, protocols, reinforcement, and get that middle school feel back in the building. 7th grade Tuesday at 8, 6th grade Thursday at 8, and 5th grade Friday at 8. As Mr. Barrett mentioned, with everything we do, it's not perfection. This is not a perfect set of circumstances. We are working really hard, and we will evaluate everything, every decision we make. Mr. Barrett and I argue on a daily basis about what the best way is and who's right. And we don't know. But neither one of us is gonna. We're constantly looking at how to improve and counting cars and doing things like that, and looking at lunches and watching the clock and how long it takes kids to be served. So please know we'll be constantly making those, looking at kids' behaviors in the classroom and in the hallways and assessing that. So, and with that, our next planning phase, which is, like I said, evaluate lunch and traffic procedures, priority, absolutely. But also to create those experiences like the music and other things because we lost so many of our middle school cultured things already this year and the end of last year. But creating experiences for our students to feel like middle schoolers and be involved, starting with that lunch, that having all the kids together, which makes a big deal, all the kids together, but safely at 6 feet. We are going to be assessing HMS health and changes to local guidelines, without a doubt. Please know that happens we're taking every kid that goes into the health room is an individual trip. Do you know what I mean? And our nurses are so well equipped and keep in the loop, and we start planning from that moment. As well as to any phone call that they get. But we are going to be that. That is our priority. That is safety, security. That's number one. And then from here, how do we move? We're going to discuss movement for our students. We don't love the idea that kids are in the same room all day. However, right now, it has proven to be a safe way for us. And as we bring back more kids, we're not going to change it before then. So we're going to evaluate how this works. But I need you to know that I think students, teachers, and I've heard from a few parents that we want the kids to not be in one place. It's awfully difficult for an 8th grade. I'll speak as an 8th grade boy. I couldn't have sat in one room all day. It would have been really challenging, and I would have gotten into a lot of trouble. But we understand that. Teachers understand it. And we're really looking at the social emotional ways to support kids on a regular basis. So please understand that. And let us know if you have any questions, concerns, or ideas. We are open. A lot of things that you may view as a problem, we don't know if you don't let us know. Right? We do a lot of talking to ourselves, and we do a lot of communicating here. We do ask for parents, but if you see something, please let us know. So to wrap up on this second to last slide, I just want to say thank you to the Hanover community. I don't think, well, I know, put it this way, I've talked with a lot of principals. There's actually a couple of principals, local principals on here, because we're going back before everyone else. Which is a big deal. So I want to thank our students, and they're not probably listening, or at least I hope they're not. But it's been a lot for them. Some have been able to roll with it and do well. Some are really struggling. And I think getting back for those kids is so important for us. Some are in virtual world doing fantastic, and so there's a fit for everybody. And we've created that this year based on need. So it's exciting. I want to say thank you to students. I want to say thank you to parents who are in our classrooms, who have been at home working because they have to be, and a support for your kid on those days when they're home. And I'm glad you get a little bit of rest now. Thank you to our nurses. I can't say it enough. Our paraprofessionals and ADAs who are constantly being moved around for staffing purposes and supported. And we've got a talented group of people, our office staff, who are there to support teachers, administration, and parents on a regular basis. Our maintenance, who is working above time, from making sure that the place is clean, to our air quality, everything that goes into this, to setting up our cones and or helping us get our cones and setting up things. It truly is a Hanover team event, from fire and police who are involved in our every step and supporting us in every way, to meeting around traffic, to our COVID testing and protocols, and making sure that this is a safe place. I appreciate everybody there. Crazy not to think about our district leadership here, who, again, if you make a statement, and I got an email today from a local principal, which started a trend of all local principals in our working group. And it was, hey, our school committee met last night and wants us to think about bringing kids back. Is anybody doing that before the end of the year? And I'm like, yeah, we are. And we're ready to do it. And our kids are ready to have that. And our parents are ready to send them. And we're going to do it safely. And we're going to do it so that it is important to us to do this well. Are we going to be perfect? Maybe not. But what I need to think about is how this administration and the people below district leaders, the team of administrators, school committee, and teachers who are making this possible, and understand the importance of having kids who need to be back in school. That's a big, big deal. And we're doing it well. From Matt Farron to Debbie St. Ives to Tom Rabb, Keith Guyette, the leadership of the district, other school administrators. We've got Joel and Stephanie here. I listened to the high school and their SAT SAT scores and their AP exam scores last night. If you didn't have a chance to check that out, please do. It's some impressive stuff going on in some really challenging times. To our school committee, Ms. Leah Miller, Ruth Lynch, John Gary, Libby Corbo, Pete Moralia. This has not been easy for any of those people in those categories, just like it hasn't been easy for other families, but it's a constant lifeline, and every little thing that happens impacts somebody, and everybody feels differently. So to be in such a place where we're ready to have kids back on Monday, those two groups should really, really be commended. And then that leaves us with our super talented and innovative teachers. Nobody planned for this, right? No, this is a big deal, but it started with their planning over the summer, in our September planning, where the teachers and administration collaborated to make a schedule that was kid-centered, a schedule that works whether we're in hybrid, remote, or in person. So it doesn't upset the world, and we are interchangeable. That was our goal going out. That was our goal. And to people at the beginning, when they said, you know what? We need to see our kids. We need to make that personal connection. So we made areas outside the day before school started so that teachers could get to know their kids, and they cycled through their team. And so that's a big deal for fifth graders who were never in here before, you know what I mean? But to understand the social, emotional, and that connectedness, and I'm going to get into that in a few seconds, but their priority of connecting with kids every day. There are not too many schools that were synchronous from day one. You hear of the room and Zoom, but synchronous so that the kids were, each and every class accounted for, is a big deal. And it's not easy. There's nothing easy about that. Keeping their Google Classrooms available, up and running. Again, strategies and skills, being innovative with the tools they're learning, because they don't have the regular stuff that was in their classroom all the time, or kids don't have access to that at home. It's a big deal. So when you're talking about synchronous instruction, for those of you at home who are listening, and you may or may not know this, but on January 19th, there was the DESE put out new guidelines that said that you had to have live instruction, whether you're in school or at home, for 40 hours over 2 weeks. Actually 35 hours, 40 if you're in virtual academy. And we have been well exceeding that from day one and every day and every period, with the exception of health and people who might have been out sick for a small time, but even with that, the majority of our teachers who were out sick, even with COVID, were teaching from their living rooms or from their offices in their houses. So hats off to our teachers. I think your innovation, your caring, your flexibility of this middle school team and of the Hanover teachers in general has really been something, most importantly, their ability to solve problems. And I need to thank them. And there's a few people on today, a few teachers on today. And that group that are on this stream, which includes our whole Hanover community, has made this possible. And it's exciting to me. It is something that we are ready to have kids back. And I believe we're ready to have kids back safely. And we will monitor that. And we will monitor COVID. We will monitor regular health trends. And we will make decisions and follow protocols as we've been doing since day one. Mrs. Casey's a whiz at that. Our nurses are whizzes at that. And I just want to again say thank you to our teachers, because we wouldn't be here without you. It's an exciting thing. In Hanover should be proud for us taking this next step and what we've been doing right along, because I think we've been trying to be ahead of the state. The news this morning had a couple of local districts that are on, and they're going to bring people back in a hybrid this week, or they did last week. Listen, we're coming back, and it's the right thing to do. So super excited. I realize people have anxiety about it. Hopefully this helps you build trust in that we are ready, capable, planned, and that we are thinkers and problem solvers, and that's what we do. And it's going to be great to have more kids roam the halls here again, although we're not going to let them roam. Sorry. So probably a bad use of that. With that being said, we're going to take any questions you have, and hopefully this was helpful for you. And thank you for stopping in, and please don't hesitate to call with anything that comes up.
So Dan, at this point, a lot of questions have been answered through the Q&A, but
Perfect.
can you go back, because I know you talked about buses at the kind of the beginning.
Sure.
And I know some people joined late, so it would be great if you could just kind of go over that again.
Sure. So buses, I understand. So buses were, they changed the last correspondence from DESE was that we could have 2 riders in a seat and family members could sit together still. So that I've had a couple of parents who said, my kids are really loving that, sarcastically. But it is what it is, and we're going to do what we need to do. But if you need transportation, there were a couple of emails that went out from central office that had asked, if you needed transportation, please contact your principal. If you do that, please do that. Right now there is a waiting list, and all the waiting list means is you contact me. Mrs. Oliver, one of our administrative assistants, has been working really hard with the bus company to get people into seats. We will have the seats. We're working with that. It would actually be great for transportation purposes and traffic purposes. But there is a waiting list, because every person who comes in does need a specific seat, so we can't just go back on. So you can't just send your kid on Monday. If they ride the bus on Thursday and Friday and you haven't signed up yet, they can't ride it Monday, Tuesday. They can ride it Thursday, Friday, but please reach out to us and we will start that process. Steve Engel has been in the bus company. They've been working night and day to make sure that we can accommodate all people. We will accommodate, but it just takes a little bit of time, because it is an exact process. Tommy sits in this row, this seat every time. All right. So that's one of those things that I just need you to think about. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, pipe back up and I will go to it. Yes.
Has there been any update? I can't talk all of a sudden. Has there been any update on the potential option of keeping Zoom as an option for students who end up in quarantine?
Good question. So one, I don't want to focus on the people in quarantine. We will have to listen. We will look at every situation as it comes up. As a memorandum of agreement with the union, it is not required that a teacher Zooms, and that's not going to change. We do need to solve the problem of how to support that when it happens, and we will do that on an individual basis. So please reach out with me. If your child has to be quarantined, or if a couple of kids in a class need to be quarantined, obviously we're going to work with how do we support that. The good news is everybody thinks it's 2 weeks for quarantine, but as Ms. Casey would tell you, it's 7 days with a test on 5th day. So the maximum days out there for a negative test would be 5 days, which is a lot, but it's not 2 weeks, it's 5 days.
7 days, but you have to test on day 5.
Correct, but you still miss 5 days of school.
Yes.
Right now, we don't have any other questions.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking the time. And patience with our traffic would be helpful. We put a lot of planning into it, and we have a lot, like Mr. Barrett said, a ton of options and a ton of ways to do things. We don't want to overthink things, but we have options and ways to make things better, and we'll be working at that. We'll start evaluating that on Monday and Tuesday, and if there's changes need to be made, we will talk about that and make them on Wednesday of next week. Thank you, everybody. I'm so excited to have your kids back in full. I believe it's just going to be a fantastic thing. So I know it's nerve-wracking, exciting, anxious, all those things. But much like when we added more kids back a few months ago, it seemed to go off flawlessly, and I'm anticipating the same thing. And so if you have any specific questions, if your child's quarantined or need additional support, please let me know, and we will work on that with you. And I'm very confident that we're going to be in a great place come Monday, Tuesday of next week. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye,
more question.
everybody.
There's another question there. There's another question.